Coming up, this must be specific to Kaiser then.
That is what's most different. Normally, like when I was with my other healthcare provider, I would just tell my OBGYN, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you tell disability to give me an extension? And they just feel like it qualified. At Kaiser, the most their doctors can really do is like 2 weeks. Hey, y'all.
Hey, mamas.
Welcome back to Raising Mama.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Chelsea.
I'm a divorced mama of 2 toddlers, sharing custody while running my own business.
And I'm a full-time nurse, pregnant with my second baby, and married to a stay-at-home dad.
Join us while we talk about the most pressing issues related to postpartum and new parenthood. This podcast is brought to you by Raising Mama, a bamboo baby brand dedicated to empowering moms during postpartum and raising awareness about maternal mental health. Raising Mama's buttery soft bamboo pajamas aren't just designed to help babies sleep better, they're made to support mothers too. And for every pair sold, a portion of the proceeds is donated to Postpartum Support International. As a thank you for listening, enjoy 20% off your next order with code RaisingMamaVillage at checkout, because we're all in this together. Before we dive in, hit the subscribe button for more expert insights and honest conversations on Raising Mama podcast.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, mamas.
Welcome back to Raising Mama.
I feel like that was a really deep one on my part. Hey,
well,
mamas.
Listeners, in case you didn't already figure it out, cat's out of the bag. I am pregnant. So I am having my second kid. And lo and behold, I also have Kaiser Insurance. So I am in the thick of figuring out California maternity leave through the Kaiser system. So Megan and I were talking, and we get so many commenters saying how difficult it is for people to navigate California maternity leave, specifically with Kaiser Insurance, that I thought it would be beneficial for me to just quickly share what I've learned, how my journey's gone, in case anybody else has Kaiser Insurance.
And you've done it twice now through Kaiser, right?
Nope, one without Kaiser, and now this will be one with.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And okay, so before we jump into things, we have 3 or 4 other videos now on California maternity leave, and we have a specific section on our channel called California Maternity Leave Videos, and we go over everything from how to get 6-month paid job protected, how to maximize your leave benefits, so all of the tips and tricks that we have pulled for it from experience, but also from other people and from talking to EDD, as well as doctors and doulas. And then we also have one for dads. So go to our channel, check that out. And then the really helpful thing is we have a 30-page PDF where we literally brain dump everything we've learned. It's fact-checked by DDD. It's got links. It's got checklists. It's got scenarios. It's got what to say in the doctor's room to get an extension. It's got everything. So we will drop the link to that in the description. You can check it out. And what we haven't talked about is Kaiser, which comes up so much in our comments.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard with Kaiser? What's the deal with Kaiser? Why are we making this video about Kaiser?
So the number one thing I hear from people commenting is that their physician, who is part of Kaiser, did not approve their extension. That's the biggest hiccup that I hear. So I'm just going to explain my journey, and then hopefully it might help others. So the journey is going to be very similar to anybody else who's just going through maternity leave in California. Again, we made another video if you happen to be going on maternity leave in California in 2025, because there's even some more awesome updates. Spoiler, they're all good. More money, don't have to use PTO. Yay. But essentially what you need to know is that when you are going through the Kaiser system, you need to go have your OBGYN, which that could be a nurse practitioner, that could be an actual physician, or many types of people that qualify as an OBGYN. Okay, then what you're going to do is on your checkups, they always have you write that little list of like how you're feeling, right? And it'll give you a score at the end. So if you're feeling anxious, depressed, or whatever. Me personally, I was working the night shift, Okay. And I was working where I'd work 1 day of night shift and then 1 day off, and 1 day of night shift and 1 day off. And if anyone has had the cruel pleasure of knowing what that really means, it's like sleep deprivation till the cows come home. And so I was struggling big time. I mean, I was like, not just vomiting, like, oh, I'm having morning sickness. No, like I was having like multiple dry heaves. I was literally, because I was pregnant, I kept peeing my pants at work. So I'd have to bring like 4 pairs of pants, spend all this time after work. I'd be like dry heaving. I'd only get like 3 hours of sleep. I was really, really struggling. So I told my doctor, I was like, dude, like, like I'd fill out the forms and he'd be like, okay, like, do you need a little bit of, therapy or help or whatever? And so I was like, yes, please, please. In fact, I was so like under the bus that my husband started dropping me off to my appointments and coming with my appointments, and he was the one who he got all the information. He set up my therapy appointments. Like I didn't have the bandwidth to even figure it out. So what they'll do is the OBGYN doctor, he is going to refer you
Or she.
to or she to basically like a maternity, like, I'm going to call it like a psychiatric specialist, right? So it's like a therapist, but only for people who are pregnant, right? So what you're going to do is, it takes a long time. It took me like 2 months to get this appointment. And you meet with this lady, okay? And she's the one who determines if you qualify to see like an actual ongoing therapist, right? Like, ooh, okay, this does sound like you're having some kind of, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. I think that for you, you will now need to get referred to one of our in-house like Kaiser therapists. So it's a 3-level system. Number 1, you have to get the referral from the OBGYN to this specific maternity, you're pregnant, figure it out if you need a therapist person. To then, I know, I wish they had a title, but I can't remember the title because I was in my fugue state. And then that person determines if you can actually get a Kaiser therapist for problems related to your pregnancy.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you need to be mindful of this early on in the pregnancy at your OBGYN appointments. And you need to be like not kind of playing down on those little questionnaires, how you're feeling. You need to think long and hard. How are you truly feeling? And be honest with it, because I'm guessing that they're very data oriented. And in order to get things done, they need to see the data. So don't screw
Totally.
yourself over.
And you have to get the referral. Like, it's like, first I had the appointment with the OBGYN, which takes a couple of weeks to get that going. Then you have to get the online video appointment with this in between person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that took a couple months. And then it took like a couple months to get the therapist. So if you are doing all of this after you have the baby, yeah, you're going to just be out of maternity leave, like you're going to be
Yeah.
back to work before you could even possibly get the document from the therapist that says, oh yes, Chelsea is experiencing some, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. She really needs some adjustments, whatever that may be. I love my job. I love Kaiser. They're amazing. They help me so much. They help me get off night shift. Like, they were like, we can make this reasonable accommodation. If this is what's making your life a living hell and it's not good for the pregnancy, let's get you on day shift. And they did. They made that accommodation for me. And all my dry heaving, all that stuff stopped. So totally wonderful. But the main thing is that the doctor, the OBGYN, either your primary doctor at Kaiser or your specialist OBGYN doctor, they cannot extend your disability more than 2 weeks because they're not specialized in psychiatric stuff. So you
So
need,
this must be specific to Kaiser then.
that is what's most different. Normally, like when I was with my other healthcare provider, I would just tell my OBGYN, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you tell disability to give me an extension? And they'd just be like, okay, if it qualified. At Kaiser, the most their doctors can really do is like 2 weeks. And then after that, they're like, okay, like I believe you, but you need to then be seen by the specialist who then can approve it. And then before you can even see the therapist, and it's like you have to go through that little hierarchy I was talking about.
All right, we're going to pause the show for just a minute because I want to share something personal with you. After having my first baby, I felt completely unprepared for how challenging postpartum life would be. I quickly realized that society just doesn't give moms the support we deserve. That's why I created Raising Mama, to make those early days just a little bit easier. Raising Mama pajamas are made from the softest bamboo fabric, engineered with micro gaps to help babies sleep better and give mamas a much needed boost. The prints feature uplifting messages like, Mama, I wished for you, and it's okay to ask for help. Phrases that are meant to prevent those negative thought cycles that so many of us struggle with during postpartum. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want to give you a special 20% off with the code Raising Mama Village. Plus, every time you buy a pair, we donate $1 to Postpartum Support International to support maternal mental health. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Now let's get back to the show.
So once you get to the therapist, and they also mandate you to join these like really good mom support groups, which are awesome. And you do the support groups and you see the therapist, that is the person who can determine if your mental health or whatever's going on related to your pregnancy is worthy for an extension. And they're the ones who put in the extension. And then
Got it.
everything's the same as before, where technically you can extend your state disability for an entire year. Pretty much nobody does that. One, because nobody needs it. But two, you lose your health insurance after 6 months. So you couldn't even pay for the person, who could extend the disability. But that is a lot of hoops. It's a lot of extra hoops. And
Yeah.
if you were to start that process like 2 months, right? Like the other glitch here, the biggest glitch that happens too, is that, again, if this is all a little over your head, please watch our video right down here. It explains the whole timeline. But the way it works, really short, is that you get 4 weeks of disability before your baby's due, 6 weeks after your baby's due, guaranteed state disability if it was a vaginal birth, and 8 weeks of guaranteed state disability if it was a C-section. So after those 8 weeks, state disability will automatically put you into paid family leave, which is like a different section. So a problem with Kaiser is, let's say at like 4 weeks, you've had a baby for 4 weeks, and this is the common time where you really start to get all this depression or lactation problems. And that's when you start the journey. That's when you talk to your OBGYN.
It's too late. It's too late because by the time that you need the extension,
you're already in paid family leave. And once you're in paid family leave, you can't extend your state disability.
You can't.
That's been used up.
You can technically file for a new one, but it's harder. It's more complicated. You want to get your extension on the state disability. It's called a pregnancy claim for the DI program, the disability insurance program through California. You make a pregnancy claim, and that's it covers pregnancy and it covers birth, and that's what you want to extend before you jump into PFL.
Exactly. So that's why I think so many people are screwed. They're like, yeah, well, by the time I finally got to the therapist, I told state disability, and they said I wasn't even on disability anymore. I was in the paid family leave, and I only have 2 more weeks of that. So I guess I'm going back to work. And that's where there's a huge rub. So my advice is always be super, super like, don't hide anything. And two, if you know it takes a while to get these people seen, you can just start the process, because, hey, you might feel great and that's fine. And then you don't use them. But it's better to sort of already have made these connections so that by the time the 4-week mark comes from your pregnancy, you're like, oh, yeah, I've already had talk to the therapist. I've already done this. I've already done that. So then it's just a choice. If you're feeling great, yeah, then they're not going to extend your disability. You're going to go back to work.
So I have a question, because I have a history of mental health problems. That makes me sound crazy, but I just have a history of anxiety and depression my whole life. And, but I had a really easy pregnancy. So even though I wouldn't classify myself as like mentally healthy while I was pregnant, I didn't really have
Mm-hmm.
like the level of morning sickness that you had. And I would probably be the person filling out the form, like, yeah, like I'm doing great. Because there is kind of like a badge of honor,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, that women have, where they're like, oh, and maybe it's not just a badge of honor. It's more just like, if you have an easier pregnancy, you're kind of like, you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
boasting about it a little bit. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
everyone always talks about how much it sucks. And so if you get the form and you're filling it out, or when you're going to your doctor's appointments, you're not bringing this stuff up. But the reality is that afterbirth is the hard part. So if this is the system where, I mean, you get what I'm trying to say, right?
I
If
do.
this is the system where we got to plan ahead for the worst days to come,
Right.
how do we do that, but do it
I think
honestly
you
and
do
in
it
like,
just like you said. You say, "Hey, I'm not feeling bad now, but let me tell you something. I have depression, I have anxiety, my family has it. It's something I'm really worried about. I want to make sure that I get at least seen and ruled out." That's it. And then they'll go, "Okay, sure. Let's set up you an appointment with the, pregnancy specialist person. And if they rule you out, then great. And then you could even talk to that pregnancy specialist person and say, look, I know right now I'm doing great, but I'd really like a therapist because I'm so terrified. With my first kid, I had 6 months of deep down depression, or my mom told me that, she had it with all three of her kids. And it's something I'm terribly, terribly, terribly worried about. I think that's an honest way to just advocate for yourself. And I don't
mhm,
see why they wouldn't, you know what I mean? Wouldn't want you to connect with somebody, because it's not just if you have it. What they're doing is they're ruling out if you need it or if you don't need it. So I think that's a worthwhile way to just be
mhm.
honest and get what you need. But who would ask for it if you didn't know it existed? That's the hard part. That's why we're here today.
Another question. So, we've also discovered through people's stories and everything, and I mean, it's kind of obvious, but a lot of care is provider dependent sometimes. Even within the same hospital system, no two OBs are
Mhm.
exactly alike, no new two nurse practitioners are exactly alike. So, within the Kaiser system, can you kind of like shop around for OBs in the sense that like finding someone that you feel like gives slightly more like patient-centered care? Like, can you see
Yeah.
multiple people?
I don't think that's hard at all, because I've already seen like 5 different types of I mean, in general, because I have such a crazy schedule, I rarely can actually see the person I'm supposed to be with,
Mhm.
So they just kind of are like, "Okay, well, as long as you see some OBGYN person that's under your Kaiser umbrella, they don't really care."
Yeah.
And I don't know, guys. I mean, maybe I'm like rose-colored glasses, but I love Kaiser. Like, I do. I mean, I feel that if you advocate, like, they will listen. Like, if you're just like, okay, then I want to speak to your manager, like, if you escalate things, like, I feel like they very rarely won't try to at least meet you halfway. I think the hard part, again, is not knowing to even ask. So there, I don't think the doctor's against you. I don't think anybody's against, like, I really just think that if you ask, chances are you don't have to shop around or anything. I think you'll probably get exactly what you need when you need it if you advocate. And if you don't, and you advocate loudly, they're all about customer service, and they're going to be like, "Oh, this chick, okay, she really, really, really is like saying she's super terrified."
Yeah. I
And
mean,
they'll
you're
make it
working
work.
within like a larger bureaucracy.
Yeah.
But, if you can advocate for yourself and kind of know the ropes,
Yeah.
then it works. And I think that there's a lot of similarities between Kaiser and also larger like hospital systems. It's when you go to the smaller providers that things get a little bit easier because they don't have like these boards governing them, and there's just less bureaucracy.
Totally, because they're just thinking, oh, well, I'm not a psych doctor, so I can't make you a psych recommendation. What they can do is give you a referral for somebody who can make that psych evaluation. But if you don't ask for that referral, well, why would they just randomly go out of their way and do it? And if what you're telling them is, I'm doing great, I'm doing fine, everything's great, I don't have any reason to worry, then it would be really weird for them to go, oh, okay, you know what you really need is this referral that you didn't ask for, that there's no inclination that you need. But really, in a nutshell, I think that's it, guys. I think that's the main thing I wanted to take away, because I think that's where the hang up comes from. And I just hope, again, with this little wisdom here, it can make your guys' journey that much easier. Do it, because obviously you only get that little precious time with your baby once. The bonding is so important. And let's face it, like, it's crazy hard. So hopefully you can check out and our new 2025 videos, see what's new there. If any of this applies for you here, it'll apply for you there in that video. And again, always check out our big 30-page PDF packet. That is the mamma jamma of all holy grail things that are going to make your life easy when it comes to California maternity leave.
And also I'd love to hear everyone else's experience with Kaiser. So share your story, drop it in the comments. You can ask us questions. We'll do our best to reply. And just, in terms of like making sure we give you the correct answer. But yeah, check it out and stay tuned for more California mat leave videos to come.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future conversations. And follow us on Instagram at Raising Mama Podcast for more updates, resources, and a peek behind the scenes. See you next time.